Hello, what is going on YouTube? So today we are hanging out in the backyard and we're going to do a European mount on that whitetail buck that we shot not too long ago. So let's see what it's going to look like. And here we have last year's. Boiled him pretty much the same way that we're going to do the boil on this guy. So let's hop outside and see how our fires are looking. Alright, so we got our little homemade platform here that we're gonna go ahead and get this boil going on, but let's go ahead and grab that water. And I think that's enough water, should be good. Let's put it on. Alright, fire is going and we'll just wait until it starts steaming and get a couple bubbles popping up, and we'll go ahead and drop our skull in. Let's go ahead and take a look at the skull. We've got our 9-point. I'll still call him a 9 because this broke off just a couple days before we bagged him, but here's our big old boy. A little bit of gruesome content, but we went ahead and cut away as much of the skin and flesh that we could from the skull, and of course we removed the eyeballs, so there are no longer eyeballs in this guy. But we'll go ahead and boil this head for a good while and just kind of eyeball it until everything bubbles to the surface, and we can just scrape it away with a little ladle. So we got our cling wrap here, and we're going to go ahead and just wrap this around the top side of the antlers just to help protect them from the smoke. And also we got to cut off our tag, so now is the time to cut that off. Alright, so we have all of our saran wrap, cling wrap, whatever you want to call it, covering the antlers as best as possible. Then we have, you can either use electrical tape or Gorilla tape, which is what I love to use for just about every job. But you can see I got pretty close down to the where the base of the skull, or I guess where the base of the antlers meets the skull, and there's a lot of lingering hair that gets stuck in the tissue that you're not really able to properly scrape it off with a knife, and you end up leaving a bunch of knife marks in your mount, and it kind of ruins the skull. So I like to get as close as I can down to the base where you have all those little bumps starting to show up in the antler, but this is how I choose to do it. There are a variety of different methods, but for an average Joe that's trying to get this job done at home, in their garage, in their backyard, whatever it might be, this is a pretty decent method that has worked for me. We have the antlers hanging above the water. Got a little bit of this Comet powdered bleach, a little bit of Fabuloso, the Clorox mildew bleach cleaner, and this is probably one of the most common things that you will see when you're doing a European boil mount is this Dawn dish soap. It helps really just kind of clean up the skull and get some of that grease and fat tissue boiled out of there, or steamed out of there, because I do want to emphasize, you do not want to boil. You do not want to boil this. You want to get it at a nice steam, which is pretty much what we have it at right now. It is steaming at a nice little heat, couple bubbles popping up, but you do not want this at a raging boil. That will cause the skull to become brittle and some of the teeth might fall out. But all we're going to do is slow cook this guy. That's what we want to do here. We just want to slow cook it. But our antler mount is in place. We got a little piece of wood here to prevent the antlers from touching the edge of the boiler pot here. But that is what you want to do, and that is what we have in there right now. It's just a little bit of these products, but mainly a lot of people just like to use the Dawn dish soap. So steaming, and we are just steaming off all that flesh, all that lingering flesh. So as you guys can see here, we have all of the membrane and that lingering tissue that was hanging on to the skull is starting to come off little by little, but we're just going to keep slow cooking it, slow steaming it, and eventually we will push away all these little pieces of lingering flesh. Now we have our second pot of water getting steaming, and you can see that it's getting pretty hot at this point. But we went ahead and emptied out the old pot, and now we're going to go ahead and take and put just a A little bit of Dawn dish soap. And you don't need a whole lot, but just a decent little tablespoon will do the trick. Next, we have our Comet. This is that bleach powder, helps remove stains, and we're just going to go ahead and dump about that much. I feel like a witch out here with all this stuff. But then I also like to just put a little splash of Fabuloso, because I want my deer skull to look fabuloso. And now we'll go ahead and take our fire poker and just mix it up. You can see here that we have it simmering. It's not boiling, but it is simmering nice and hot. We have our antlers. The base of the antlers are just on the edge of going into the mixture that's boiling or steaming. All right, so on the top side here you can see that bleach powder going to work and kind of whitening up the skull a little bit. But we're also going to be doing a secondary bleach off of this as well. We still have the brain matter inside the skull there. I'm going to go ahead and just let it sit in here for a little bit longer, let it soften up a little bit more. And that's what we want right there. We don't want it boiling, we just want it steaming real good. Got a nice little simmer going. Now, after pulling it out during our second boil period or steamer period, you'll notice that these ear cavities on the back side of the skull, they'll have some lingering tissue, cartilage that's built up around them. So what you want to do is take some needle nose pliers and pop out the ear canals. And you can do the same thing with the flathead screwdriver. You can go ahead and just wedge it in there inside the ear canal and actually just pop them out. But you do got to be careful. Of course, the skull, after being steamed all evening, we need to take into consideration that it can be a little brittle. You can see here when I pulled this one off, it kind of chipped just a little edge of the back of the skull off. But no worries there. We want to focus on making it look good on this front side. So far so good. And all that ear, there's that nose cartilage that is thankfully all got that pulled out. And also, of course, one of the big bugaboos is getting out the brain. Some people manage to pull it out in relatively decent sized pieces, but inside the back of the skull here, you want to use either a screwdriver or some needle nose pliers to go ahead and work that brain matter out of there. It's kind of a nasty job, and a lot of the times after simmering it for the long periods that I choose to do it for, I end up finding myself fingering it out of there with my pinky and in a high pressure hose. And generally after you squish it up a bunch in there with the screwdriver, you can hit it with a high pressure setting on your water hose, and it'll go ahead and blow out any of that remaining brain matter as it is broken up into pretty small pieces at that point. But anywho, just wanted to point that out and mention the ear canal pockets that you need to pull off. I think it's safe to say that we have pretty much everything removed as best as possible. You can see here on the back, we got as much of that cartilage and lingering tissue and pulled out of there, and of course there's no more brain matter in there. But this is what I think is good. All the teeth are in place, none of the teeth fell out. If you overdo it, you will notice your teeth will literally they will end up in the bottom of your boiling pot. So definitely got to be careful not to overboil. Now that our skull has had some time to sit out in the breeze and it's kind of aired out a little bit and gotten some of that extra moisture off of it from simmering all evening, we'll go ahead and lay it down in this little baking dish. Unfortunately, this is all I had. A lot of the times what I will do is I'll take a one of those little plastic painter trays and use that to kind of collect the bleach and whitening solution that we're going to be applying to the skull. So here are just a few of the products that I was able to find under the kitchen sink. These are, you know, you got your Oxy rug cleaner, we got that powdered bleach that removes tough stains, and then we have some mildew and mold removers that are spray style. So little sprayer mounted on top. Now you can just go ahead and grab a gallon of bleach and gently pour that over and mix a little bit of water in it to dilute it, but we're just going to go ahead and mist over and pour some of these products and just see if we can't mix up a little whitening solution that'll help get rid of some of these fatty acid stains up on the top of the skull. After putting some of the Oxy carpet cleaner and just drizzling it over the top, I went ahead and then took some of the mildew and mold bleach spray and went ahead and just sprayed it thoroughly and evenly, trying to avoid trying to spray on the lower beams of the antlers. And you can see here I put a little bit of fresh tape to cover up the base of the antlers where they were poking out a little bit, just because we don't want to damage the color that they naturally have. So gently spraying and just being mindful of where the spray is. We've gone ahead and draped wet paper towels over and around and wrapped up the skull pretty decent, and now we're just gonna carefully drizzle on some bleach solution, and we want to go ahead and give this a good soaking. Now that it's had some time to soak in our bleaching mixture, it is cleaned up a little bit better. Not my bunch, but what can you expect? I mean, at the end of the day, it's clean, it's sanitized, and I think it's looking pretty darn decent. So, and there it is. Got the bubble wrap or saran wrap pulled off of the antlers, and you can see that they still maintain and are keeping their original color from when they came off the field. So sometimes you have to brush up down at the base where the antlers meet the skull, but I mean, beautiful turnout on these guys. They didn't get covered in too much smoke this time around. Guys, I think that just about wraps it up. I appreciate y'all taking the time to watch the video. Hopefully it's helped y'all in some way or another, but then again, at the end of the day, I'm just your average Joe driveway goofball messing around with this stuff, and it's just something I really enjoy, and I think these came out pretty nice. We're just going to go ahead now at this point. If you've done the same thing, now it's time to find something to screw this onto, whether it be one of those little mounts you just prop it up on and it fits right in the back of the skull hole where the brain cavity is, or you find a nice little piece of wood that you've fixed up and you want to screw it in. There's you know, you literally can drive a screw right into this. But anywho, I'll show you guys hopefully later on in another video. I'll show what I typically do to get these mounted up on the wall, looking a little bit nicey, a little bit more classy. But appreciate you guys taking the time to watch the video. Hopefully it's helped you in one small way or another. But feel free to give the video a like, comment, share, or even hit that subscribe button. It is appreciated. But we'll leave it at that. You guys take care. Have a good one.